Welcome to today's session. We are diving into Dare to Lead, Brave Work, Tough Conversations, Whole Hearts by Dr. Brené Brown. This practical playbook is distilled from extensive research, including interviews with over 150 global C-level leaders regarding the future of leadership. Our goal today is to unpack the core learning objectives and practical applications she provides to help us build cultures of courage in our own workplaces. Daring leadership requires a fundamental shift in how we view fear. As Marcus Aurelius famously noted, what stands in the way becomes the way. In our organizations, the obstacles we face, the tough conversations and setbacks, are the work. Daring leadership isn't about eliminating fear or engineering it out of the equation. It's about how we respond to it. Most leaders feel brave and afraid at the exact same time. The key takeaway is that courage is not a genetic trait. It is a collection of 4 teachable, observable, and measurable skill sets. Brené identifies 4 essential courage skill sets. In this visual, you see that rumbling with vulnerability is the foundation. Without this core skill, the others are impossible to put into practice. As she notes, our ability to be daring leaders will never be greater than our capacity for vulnerability. Once we build that foundation, we can develop living into our values and braving trust. Finally, learning to rise serves as the roof, allowing us to get back up after the inevitable falls that occur when we dare greatly. The first skill is rumbling with vulnerability. We must dispel the myth that vulnerability is weakness. It is actually the emotion we experience during times of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. A rumble is more than just a tough talk. It's a commitment to lean into that discomfort, stay curious and generous, and serve the work rather than our egos. Effective leaders recognize that they cannot get to courage without walking through the suck of vulnerability. It's about showing up when you can't control the outcome. It is vital to distinguish between systemic and relational vulnerability. In fields like engineering, operations, or finance, systemic vulnerability, loopholes, liabilities, or potential failures, must be engineered out to prevent disaster. However, relational vulnerability, the uncertainty inherent in human connection, feedback, and ethical decision-making, must be engineered into team culture. You cannot have trust, effective problem-solving, or adaptability without it. Relational vulnerability is the cornerstone of innovation because there is no creativity without the risk of failure. If fear isn't the barrier to leadership, what is? It's our armor, the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors we use to protect ourselves when we cannot tolerate vulnerability. This armor shows up in many ways, such as rushing into ineffective solutions to avoid discomfort, or letting perfectionism stifle learning. It manifests as gauzy, unmeasurable values and creates a massive energy drain on the organization. To grow and contribute fully, we must recognize these self-protection mechanisms and learn to take the armor off. Let's look at specific armored versus daring behaviors. Are you a knower who needs to be right, often driven by shame and leading to defensiveness? Or are you a learner who focuses on getting it right, admitting, I don't know, but I'd like to find out? Similarly, do you hustle for your worth by jumping in everywhere to prove you deserve a seat at the table? Daring leaders know their value. They understand their unique contributions and rest in grounded confidence rather than seeking constant external validation or exaggerating their importance online. We also see armor in how we treat exhaustion and hurt. Armored cultures reward exhaustion as a status symbol, pegging self-worth to productivity. Daring leadership cultivates belonging and boundaries, recognizing that sustainable performance requires rest, white space, and clear personal boundaries. Finally, armored leaders often lead from hurt, seeking approval from colleagues that they never receive from their parents. Daring leaders lead from the heart, staying curious about their own blind spots and attending to their own fears so they don't mismanage their teams. The second skill is living into our values. Brené teaches that values are only rumor until they live in the bones, meaning they are practiced, not just professed. Daring leaders carry a clarity of values that acts as a North Star in the arena. The problem in many organizations is that values remain gauzy aspirations, assessed by intention rather than action. To solve this, we must operationalize values into specific, skills-based behaviors that can be taught, observed, and evaluated by the entire team. Here is the process for operationalizing values. Step 1 is identifying the core value, such as be brave. Step 2 is defining observable behaviors, such as I set clear boundaries or I talk to people, not about them. Finally, in step 3, we evaluate and coach. This involves one-on-one conversations using a 1 to 5 scale to identify strengths, coaching opportunities, and blind spots. This process moves values from cat posters to actionable standards that drive team culture and decisive decision-making. Skill 3 is braving trust. Trust isn't built in grand gestures, it's the stacking and layering of small moments and reciprocal vulnerability over time, the marble jar. Simply telling an employee, I don't trust you, is dangerous because it feels like a character attack, spiking shame. The daring approach is to deconstruct that triggering word into its anatomical behaviors. This allows us to isolate the exact breach and make a specific plan for change rather than rumbling generally about character. The Braving Trust Inventory is a rumble tool for these conversations. It breaks trust into 7 elements: boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, confidentiality, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. For instance, integrity means choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy. Using this inventory, colleagues fill it out independently and then meet to discuss where their experiences align. It turns a vague subject into a productive, actionable dialogue that builds trust at the same time you are operationalizing it. The final skill is learning to rise. Leaders must be prepped for hard landings before they jump. Because humans are biologically wired for meaning making, our default when in struggle is to come up with a story that makes sense of what's happening. We instinctively make up a shitty first draft, SFD story, to fill data gaps. These bad stories and conspiracy theories are costly to organizations. Daring leaders create the safety for people to reality check these narratives before they cause damage. A practical tool for this is the phrase, the story I'm telling myself right now is. This approach uses disarming honesty, acknowledging that making up stories is a normal human response to uncertainty. It minimizes negative emotions by turning potential conflicts into collaborative data gathering exercises. By surfacing these shitty first drafts swiftly, teams can verify facts and understand the thinking and feeling driving behaviors before reacting impulsively. This is how we own our stories, so we can write the ending. To conclude, the level of collective courage in an organization is the absolute best predictor of its ability to succeed and innovate. Courage is a rebellion against critics and fearmongers. It is a daily practice, not a permanent trait. Remember that clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Silence around hard topics is the epitome of privilege and corrodes trust. Brené's final challenge to us is to choose courage over comfort, whole hearts over armor, and the great adventure of being both brave and afraid.